Welcome to Live Coding with rabbitwerks JavaScript. My name is Sean, and tonight is episode 5 of the FullStack Authentication and Authorization from Scratch series that we were building off of the Coding Garden with CJ's original series. So, if you're the first time checking out the project, link for the original project is in the description, and tonight we're going to be building out the register view. So we have a basic Express app on the back end going, and right now we're building out a front end login sign up page and stuff in Vue. And last session we got done building out a Navbar and walking through that and getting some CSS variables set up, and Flexbox utility.css from yours truly at the link in the description below if you want to follow along using Flexbox library. And yeah, okay, so cool. Joshua's in the stream tonight, so what's up, dude? Thanks for tuning in, and we're gonna get started without any else to do. So I'm gonna close these components really quick, and first thing I want to do is I'm gonna start by making a new branch. So get checkout -bfsafs-c-01 __, and we're just gonna say register view init, right, like that. Cool. We have a new branch that we're gonna work on, and so now we can take a look at the register.view. So if we actually spin the server up, so let me just start up the front end, and I think I'll start up the, well, I don't think I'll need to start up the back end for now, but whoops, kill that term, make a new window. Oh no, not that, there we go, split it off, cd client. All right, let that build for a second. So we're in our register view, and there's a couple things that we're going to do from here. We want to take this h3, we're going to turn that into kind of like a page header or whatever, and a view header, and then that's going to be one main component, and then the other main part of this view is going to be our registration form. So it's going to consist of about 8, well, you can do a setup how many you want, but for the prototype, I have set up 8 fields. Well, first name, last name, username, user class, email, confirm email, password, and confirm password. So 8 fields. You don't necessarily need all that. You could just do like an email and a password, whatever. But we want to make sure that we're definitely verifying that the emails match and that the passwords match, if nothing else. So we'll get to that. But for now, let's just take a look at this, see what we got here. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the prototype. And I want to pull the colors that I have for my prototype into this project, because this is just kind of not working for me. So font color main is going to be, just bear with me for just a second because I have all these copied over here. So font color main is going to be this hex number now. So 5DD8A9 if you want to follow along completely. I'm going to also copy in 2 new properties for actually, yeah, I'm going to bring these in just to be consistent. So we got 2 other properties I want to bring in. So app font color, actually, I'm just going to actually change the syntax of this so it's correct. So font color white, and then font color light. Background color is going to be 07070F. Make sure we don't miss our Akathorpe there. And then the Navbar which is actually right here, background color. So we're going to change that out. So when I have this color accessible in CSS variables, so let's just do background color app dash background color, and then I want to do the nav background color. And instead of the nav background color being that, I want it to be this slightly different shade. Now that I have my characters all screwed up and fixed and all that good stuff, we can continue on. So let's take a look. Okay, so just need to replace this with our new color. So we'll say var dash dash. Bring this over here so I can actually see my code. Okay. So the nav bar, we want nav dash or dash dash nav. If I can type nav dash bg dash color. And then I want to give, I have to update my background colors for the view. Main app.view. Okay, here. So app bg color. All right, let's see what that gives us. Okay. A little bit nicer on the eyes, not so clashing on the colors. So we're going to go with this. Okay, so we basically just have these two things right now on our nav bar, login, register, view. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I didn't add in that logic on this part. So what we're going to do is build out in here so far. So I'm going to just bump the size up on this to 125% so we can see it a little easier. Oh yeah, Joshua says my brain melted for a second looking at Vue on one half of my screen and React on the other half. So Joshua is actually coding along in this project with us, and he's doing it in React. So we can take a look at that code base further along the project as well. It'll be interesting to see the differences and the similarities between the two. Okay, so register view. Let's get started on this. So I want to give this div, this main outer div, I'm going to give it a class of register dash dash outer. Oops. Everything just got minimized. That was strange. Sorry about that. Okay. Register outer, and then inside of that, what I'm going to do is just to give myself a little bit of clarity on like the structure of the app, I'll usually do an outer and then an inner. So like the outer is kind of like a wrapper to kind of like worry if I need to worry about padding or anything like that. Just kind of helps me keep my code and styling a little bit more succinct across things. But you can kind of, you know, feel free to do it however it works for you, but as long as it's kind of the same underlying functionality is there. Okay, so I'm just going to get a started class of register dash dash inner. And then inside of here, I'm going to make a class, and it's going to be called view header. And I can actually bring this h3 up here to that says register and bring that into the view header, because this will be, we'll turn this into a component in a little bit later on, but for now we're just going to have it in there as static. And then I want to just make sure I change it to an h1, so it's a little bit bigger than the h3 that we had going on there. All right, where are we at with styling? All right, so if we take a look at what we got so far, so I don't want it to be that big for the content, inner content stuff. So let me boost this up as well so everybody can see it. There we go. I'll just have to keep it. Hopefully that's readable for people. So I want it to be about 70%. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, add my style tag or style block. And I'm just going to make sure it's scoped. So the styles only apply to the stuff inside of this component. Alright, so let's say register view. Or register inner, I'm sorry. Register inner, I want it to have a width of 70%. Oop, not 10%, 70%. There we go. And then I also want to give it just a little bit of margin on the top, push it down. And we're going to give it about 80 pixels, so 4 rem. You can see, okay, so we're kind of getting there a little bit. Obviously, right now, if we take a look at it, it's going to be just 70% of the screen right here. So we need to apply some Flexbox stuff to this. And that's actually going to take place on the outside wrapper. So this register outer, we're going to, if you're using the Flexbox utility library with us, so we're typing the fxbx class for setting it to Flexbox, and then j-center to justify content center. Right? Okay, cool. So if you're not following along with the Flexbox utility library, you're just going to have to try and type up the Flexbox styles as best as possible. So yeah, so now we can see that it's kind of in the center more a little bit. It's kind of spaced out, and if we inspect it, you can see it's taking up about what we want here. So Joshua says, I can read it and not in full screen. Sweet. Excellent. Okay. So now that we have that there, we're going to move on from our view header. I can actually give our view header some styling really quick. So dot view-header. And I just actually want to give it a border bottom. And let's see, did we have, I know we had some CSS variables for us, 3 pixel size. Alright, so we will do, I want it to actually be the font color main. We can maybe do it to light, but so let me just copy this over, and I will say var, oops, because we learned last stream that we can combine multiple CSS variables to make a shorthand statement, or to make a full statement, rule statement. It's kind of interesting, super cool. So var, and it's going to be dash border size first, and then the next one we want is var, and then we will pass in font color main, just like that. Now we should have, all right, cool. And I just want to give it a little bit of padding on the bottom. So padding bottom, and that will just push that border away from that text slightly. So I'll just, we'll just see what 1 rem looks like here. Okay, so maybe a little bunch. We'll probably do 0.5 rem. So 10 pixels. And remember, the reason why it's 10 pixels is because I have the font size set at 20 pixels on the HTML element, and that's what determines the size of a rem. So can't drive that home enough. Super cool. Love it. All right, cool. So now that we have that, we can move on to the next part of this view. And it's going to be where we're going to have the form, so our content. So I'm just going to actually create a generic kind of like wrapper right now. I know that HTML, all the things we're just talking about, how wrappers, sometimes you have too many wrappers and stuff like that, but as long as everything makes sense. Excuse me. Okay, all right, so inside of here, we're gonna make a content div. I'm gonna give it the class of content outer, just like that. And then inside of here, I'm going to create a form. So we'll do form, and we'll give that the class of content dash dash inner. Again, that's just kind of to work with the how I like to work with like my padding and layouts for elements and stuff like that. So if you get away without the wrappers and the like outer inner kind of like syntax and whatnot, then great. Okay, so I'm just going to delete the action because we're not actually going to be doing it like that in this case. So I'm just going to actually scaffold this out a little bit so we can have a little easier to read here. Along with the class, I also just want to add in the method attribute, and I'm going to set it to post. And the reason being for this is not that we're not necessarily using this form to send any data directly, but by default it's gonna default to a GET request, meaning that it could potentially generate a query string inside of the address bar. So if you're registering a new user, obviously you don't want to have anything generating inside the address bar because it's going to contain sensitive information such as your passwords, which is not what we want. So to make sure that no matter what happens, no matter how many times it gets run, that the method being fired off when this submit button on the form gets clicked is that it's post, and that the address bar won't generate a query string for whatever reason. So just kind of like a fail-safe from what I've learned in the past or been recommended to from learning materials and stuff. So all right, next thing we want to do, I'm going to actually just take a look at this so I can see. So we have let's take a look at our thing. So what we're going to do here, Michael's joined us from HTML All the Things. Yup, you need some wrappers for sure. Haha. Yeah, I know. I mean, as long as everything has its purpose. I mean, some of these stuff are just class names just so I can know what it is, like this register outer. Obviously, I don't think I'm ever going to use that class. I mean, I could at some point, but I just have really this class in there for readability. So register outer, register inner, I know what each of these elements are for, kind of little notes, so to speak. Thanks for tuning in, dude. Appreciate it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do inside of this form is, whoops, I don't want to start The Witcher. I do apologize about that. If you want to check that out, check out Sharpie360 Gaming on twitch.tv. But this is not what we're doing right now. So let me get out of this. Oh, it's such a good game. It's just begging to be played. Get out of here, Gerald. All right. Sorry about that. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to basically build up this form to have two sets of inputs. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2 kind of thing. So two sets of 2 inputs for each line. So what I want to do in order to achieve that properly, let me see here. In order to achieve that properly, I want to basically have a div with 2 input sets in them. Okay, so I'll say okay, so the first inputs we're going to do is for the first and last name. So we'll say this input group is going to be name input group, just like that. Okay, so inside of here, I'm going to also have another kind of like a grouping of elements, so another wrapper, so to speak. But this is going to basically contain our label and our input field. So first I want to create the div, and we'll do input group, and this will be actually reusable. So we have the div in there. Now I want to write a label, give it a label, and that is going to have the class of input dash label. 4 will be first first name, because that's going to be what the ID of the element is. First name, oops, first name, just like that. Neat. Okay, and I'm just going to enter these out like this because it's easier for me to read. All right, cool. All right, so we have our label. Now we need our input. So we'll do input text, and it's just going to have the class of. Actually, we'll start by giving it. I guess it doesn't really matter which order you do emit in. It'll set it up the same. So the ID is going to be first name because we want it to have the same value as this for. So when we click the label, it knows that it's talking about this input. Right, and then we also want to give it the class of input dash text. So input text, this is all emit. So input text with the ID of first name and the class of input dash text, just like that. We won't need the name attribute. Let's just build this out slightly again. Yeah. Well, so, oh yeah, so kind of an update on the music and stuff. I think that it has been kind of working. I feel like my traffic has been increased in the last week since we did the last stream without any music playing in the background. So we'll see what happens with everything. And then the last thing I want to do is give this, we're going to give it the required attribute because we want to make sure that the users have to type it in. Cool. So yeah, I think that should be all that we need. Let's take a look. I know that we don't have any styling yet, but we will fix that. And let's see. So FX, we're going to apply Flexbox to the outer, so the name input group we're going to apply Flexbox to, and that'll basically allow it to give it the whole size of the container, right? So fxbx, and then I also want to give it a bit of a gap in between. So we won't be able to see this right now, really, but when we get the secondary input in there, we'll be able to see it. So I have a special set of classes in my Flexbox utility library for applying a sort of like gap to the flex items. So we call it flex gap. I just want it to have the second width of it. Right? Excuse me. So yeah, you can't really see it right now, but once we get a second group in there, we'll be able to see it. Speaking of which, we can actually do that by just taking this whole input class group and we're gonna just duplicate the entire thing, and then we can just go through and make some modifications to our attributes here. So we just want to change first for last. And I think that's actually it. Just like that. Okay, so let's see. Where are we at with things? All right. Okay, so let's give some styling to these inputs now really quick and get that taken care of. So we can actually do it in, we're actually going to do it in the main CSS. Reason being is because we're going to use these styles in our login page as well, because this is going to be kind of like some base input group styling that we're going to have. So, excuse me, the throat is just kind of not doing well. The weather is going from 70 degrees to 30 degrees overnight, so it's not good for my allergies and stuff, so all that good crap. So okay, so let's get these classes written. So we have input group, so input dash group, just like that. and we want to just make sure that those are getting 100% width. Oop. Type it out in the right order. So width 100%, and then we also want to give it a little bit of margin on the bottom. So margin bottom, and we'll just say 1 rem, just like that. Cool. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to give the font label a little bit of size here. Let's see. Just checking my notes, making sure everything is going to be accurate. Okay. All right. So we want to give. Where am I here? Before we do the label, I'm going to actually do the input text. So we'll do .input -- text, right? And that is going to give. We're going to set. They're going to have a number of different styles in here because obviously when we look at HTML5 elements, the inputs and stuff have default styling and stuff like that, and it's kind of not the best looking, so I'm going to overwrite a lot of it. I don't know if I should just manually type this out or copy it in. Let's type it in just really quick. All right, so we actually want to just copy. We're going to borrow the font family property from the app, app.vue. So we want it to have a veneer for the font, just so it's consistent across our app, and the inputs don't have a different font than the app, than the rest of the app. All right, so we're going to bump up the font size slightly. Give it 1.2 rem, so that would be 24 pixels. Next, we're going to set the display property. We want to make sure that it is blocked, so it goes on its own line. We're going to make sure that it has 100% width, so it's taking up all the available room. We're going to make sure we give it a fixed height of 2 rem, so that it looks decent. So let's see what we got so far. All right, so we're getting there. Not quite yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Actually, I'm going to bring this. Now we can actually probably go like this for the time being. Okay. Next thing we want to do is I want to give it a little bit of margin on the top because I don't want it right up against the label. But I think now that I think about it, I think since we're kind of working with margin bottom across the app, I think I'm going to go with that and just add some margin bottom on the label instead of doing margin top on the text input, because that kind of creates some inconsistencies across your styling. So you kind of want to make sure that things are consistent. So if you're using margin bottom to push stuff down throughout the app, probably want to keep doing that versus mix and matching margin top versus margin bottom, unless the situation has no other option. But if you can help it, I would recommend probably just using one or the other consistently. You know what I mean? Consistency is how you get the best code, really. Most bulletproof, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, so we're going to skip the margin top because we're going to add that on the label. And then I want to actually, you can see right here that it's kind of just like right up against the edge. I want to actually give them this input a little bit of padding. So you can add padding into the inputs. So we'll just do 5 pixel padding. So 0.5, or not 25, jeez. Oh no, it's way too big. All right. Actually, I don't want padding on the whole thing. I want, oh my gosh. Let's start over on that. So padding, it's going to be padding left because I just want it on the left side of the text, and it's going to be 0.52 rem. You might be wondering, well, why, if you know what the actual pixel values are, why didn't you just type the pixel values in? Well, because I could simply go like this. I have responsivity in a nutshell. That is so cool that you can do that. Like, I mean, you just can't beat the simplicity of that. I mean, come on now. You make it as big as you want. It's beautiful. Love it. So that's why I use rems and why you should too, because it'll save you a lot of time when you're trying to make this stuff mobile responsive. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is we're actually just going to give our inputs a little bit of border. So we can probably actually take this from down here. Yeah. So we're going to copy this border bottom thing just so we don't have to type it out again in the sake of time. And we want it actually to be around the entire element, not just on the bottom. So we could just get rid of that. And boom, cool. And to top it all off, I just want to give a little bit of border radius, just so it's not quite so boxy. Alright, so BR border rad, and I want to do 3 pixels on this one. And I will do the border radius in pixels just because it's easier like that to get the size that you want. I mean, the pixel radius isn't really necessarily something that you want scaling to be. I don't know, whatever, you do what you want. I wonder why this isn't being spaced out though. Let me take a look. Oh, I don't have the. Let's see. Oh, I have flex hand. Oh shoot, I need to update this. So I'm gonna I have to pull in. I have some additional classes on my prototype on my Flexbox thing that I need to bring into this one because this one isn't as up to date as my actual project file. So these are just essentially these shorthands for the flex gap stuff, and you can see right there it spaced it out. So I can undo that. You can see that it shortens it again, and if I redo that, and you can see it applies this type of gap to it. So that's my implementation of a flex gap, or like a grid gap with you would get with CSS grid. So yeah. All right, so the last thing we want to do really quick is we're going to give our label some spacing, and we're going to also bump up the font size as well. So that input dash label. All right. All right, we're going to give it font size of 1.2 rem. And then I also want to give it margin bottom of, what was it, 0.5 rem, I believe. Keep adding that additional semicolon in there. Let's make sure we're targeting the right class names. Input label. Input label. Yeah, because the font size is right. Okay. Oh, that's fine. Let's see, that's why I can get rid of that period thing there. What the heck? Oh, I wonder if I can't apply the margin to the label because it's an inline block. Or an inline item. Let me see. Label cursor default. Let me try setting this to display block really quick and see what happens. There we go. Margin bottom on the group. I should also give this heading a little bit of margin as well. This is too much on the label though, so I want to bring that down to, I think what we had it at in the original prototype was 0.5 rem. Yeah. That even looks like a lot. I'm gonna bring it down to 2.5. Okay, and then the view header, I'm actually going to give a little bit of margin bottom to as well. And we'll do run 1 rem on that, just to push it down away from that border. Okay, cool. So we're getting somewhere. We got some decent looking inputs. Now we can actually duplicate these a little bit and see what's going on. So we haven't done anything with the view yet, or with Vue yet. We're just kind of getting these built out. Actually, we could probably do that right now. So let's take a look at the Vue instance and then see how we're going to work all this stuff in. So we really don't need all that much stuff. What we need is wait a second. Oh, because this, I'm confusing myself. Sorry. Okay, so inside of our Vue instance, so inside this export default, we need to set up a couple, well, mainly one thing right now. We just need a spot for us to hold the data that we're going to be inputting from our forms, or from our inputs. So we're going to use vModel. It's a Vue directive to basically two-way data bind to properties in our data object here. So let's see, data is a function that returns a new object. So inside of this new object that we're returning, we're going to have a new user, I guess. I mean, just for the sake of it, considering that you're going to have more things going on than just a register page, you probably want to keep this inside of a new user type of object, you know, but unless versus just like just having first name, last name, username kind of standalone properties inside of the data object. Keeping it contained inside of a new user will kind of keep it categorized. That way, if you have multiple elements of data going on in your stuff, then you can kind of keep it separated just by looking at it and knowing, okay, this is user data that's going to stay in this area, and then this is like login data, or like, you know, an API call or something like that. You know, it's going to be sitting in this area, so things aren't mixing up and all over the place, kind of keeping things organized. All right, so can I throw the classes in the Discord? Yeah. I sure can. I mean, if they're the same thing, the full hands are in there, so it's just the typed out flex gap -3, flex gap -2. So you can use those. It's just the shorthands aren't in there, but I can share that to the to my Discord server if you want really quick. While that's spinning up, okay. So we're gonna have a few things in here. Let's start by adding the first name. I think it's kind of redundant to have like a name separate object. I mean, depending on, again, how much stuff and the context of your application and all that stuff, do what you need to do. But I'm not gonna put my first and last name inside of a name object inside of the new user. I think that's a little bit overkill, a little bit redundant. So there's just gonna be blank strings right now, because we will be using these to vModel too, and they'll be filled in by the inputs. So we're gonna have a username. Actually, username is going to be one word in this case. Oops. What do I have here? I have the user class. So user class would be like something that I'm just putting in here for kind of personal, like it would be like, okay, well, what kind of class do you want your character to be? Is it going to be a JavaScripter, an Angulist, an Angulifier, a Reactmacarons? I don't even know all these words. A CSSist, an HTMLite, or a Noderonomy, Vuetronicist. I like that one. I'll show you these in a second. They're kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so if user could be able to pick a class from a drop-down menu, just kind of demonstrating that functionality as well. And then we'll have email, and then we also need email confirm. And I'm putting confirm after the word email because I want to make sure that these are generated next to each other in stuff like the dev tools and whatnot. And then we have pass. Also, we have a pass confirm. Well, if I can type, I think I'm losing the ability to type. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. Okay, so first, we don't have to worry about most of these for now. We're going to look at the first and last name. So if we go up to our inputs, remember we got our first name here and our last name here. So we want to use our vModel directive that comes to us in Vue, and so we can simply do that by doing vModel equals new user dot first name, just like that. And then we can come down here. That's on the input, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, new user. Make sure we don't have any typos. And then for the last name, we'll do the same thing. So vModel, and then it will be new user dot last name, just like that. And again, I keep holding the shift button too long when I'm because I've been playing too many games. Cool. So now we can actually take a look at the Vue dev tools, and let's make sure that this vModel is actually working. So in our register component, we have our new user object, and so we have you see the email and email confirm and pass and email pass confirm. If it started with C's, then the confirms would be next to each other, and then they wouldn't be next to their counterparts. So let's just make sure this works, and you can see Sean shows up right there. And if we do rabbitwerks, that you can see it shows up right there. Cool, it's working. Excellent. Okay, so let's fly through these next couple things. So we're just going to be basically duplicating a lot of these inputs right now. So this entire input group we can actually just duplicate, right? Cool, so we have multiple things there now. We don't need that. We're going to change some stuff in this to be what we want. So this is going to be the username. So we're going to set this to username. Type in username here. First name or new user dot username. And username is one word, so we don't have the capitalized N in this case. And then this will be a little bit different. So we're not going to have the input group in here, right, per se, or text input. We're going to have a select element, right? So this is going to be a user class. And then, so before yeah, what time is it? We got 45 minutes in. Let's see. Oh, I was going to share that to the Discord, my bad. Here. All right, should be there. Cool. Okay, so let's build out this select thing really quick. So selects are kind of interesting when working with Vue in order to get the actual placeholder or predefined value in there. You go about it a little bit differently, so we'll look at that as well. So let's first start by just making a select element, and we don't need a name again, but we do want to give this the class of input text, and it's probably not the best because for input text, I guess, because it's not really a text input, but as long as it's giving us our styles, I'm gonna be all right with it for now. So we just want to make sure we give it an ID of user class, so it associates it with this label gets associated with it. And you can kind of tell that when I click the label, you see that it auto focuses essentially. That's what that for tying it into the the ID of the input. That's what that for attribute does, if you weren't sure about that. So you notice that this isn't actually updated either. So, okay, we got that going, and cool. So let's break open this select element and get some options in here. So user class, that's fine. I'm just gonna keep it like that. Whatever. I mean, we could hyphen delimitate it, but I'm trying to keep it kind of consistent with the names of the properties as well. It's kind of, you know, you work with what you got. Let me close this out really quick. Okay, so okay, so let's start on these options. So let's just first add an option, and the first thing I want to do is we're going to give it the value. So we just want to say HTML. So this is going to have another number of different things. We'll have and I'm just going to copy the text in here so we can, well, I guess I don't need to like type that in, copy that in. That's kind of lazy, but okay. So we have a number of different options we're going to put in here. So we need to, the value attribute is what will actually be used as like the value of the input, you know what I mean? The text is just essentially a label, you know what I mean, inside of this. So this text inside of the two tags is essentially just a label for what value you want to select out of the dropdown. It doesn't really mean anything. What really matters is this value attribute. That's what is really going to give you, or the value of the form or the input. So we have ANG for Angular, React, Vue, React, Vue, and then last but not least, Node. All right. So just bear with me on this. I'm actually just going to delete all of these out of here, and then it should be a little bit easier to bring these other values in. Okay, so I am a JavaScript engineer, just like that. Trying to make it a little more entertaining, a little fun, so. Oh, we can't have music on our stream anymore. I'm so bored. What am I gonna do? Vue, and last but not least, we just got Node. Whoops. And you don't have to go through all of that. You could just, I mean, you can have whatever you want in there, but this is just how I have it in there, just to kind of give it a little bit of interest to the whole concept of stuff. Okay, so that's good. So now we need to apply our V model to it, and this is where things might get a little bit confusing for people not used to working with V model and selects. So check this out. If I V model, it's going to two-way data bind to a property that we have somewhere on our Vue instance. So I'm obviously going to V model to this user class, but you can see that this is a blank string. So what is it going to do? Well, it's just going to load that value in a blank string into this input field, which isn't any of our set options. So it's just going to appear blank. So for instance, Vue model equals new user dot user class, just like that. And okay, so you see it refreshed, it reloaded, and you can see that it's empty. But we don't want that. We want it to be generated, or we want it to be autofilled at least to some sort of value in there. So what would you do normally? Well, in a traditional sense of just HTML, you would probably just go about adding the selected attribute to it like this, and that basically tells that the input field that you want this this value to be selected by default. So if we delete that and I were to select, let's just say React down here, and we add in the selected attribute, you can see that it automatically sets that as the default value. but that doesn't work when we're v-modeling. So how do we work around this? This drove me nuts trying to figure out for so long. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, why doesn't it work? And then you just sort of like, oh, I get it. I now know how to do it. So we're going to v-model to new user, and it's going to be the user class attribute. And what we want to do in order to get a value in here is we need this value in our data field property, our data object, to match a value of one of these value attributes in our options. So we are going to type in HTML and see what happens. Type it in right so it works. And you can see it loads like that. Awesome. So now what if we type view? And you can see that it's not just a fluke. It actually is doing it like it's supposed to do it. Okay, cool. So that is how you v-model properly with like a select. Yeah. So if I take it down here and you can come down here. If we change this right down at the user class in the the Vue Dev Tools, you can change it. You can see that it updates. So that's how you want to go about using v-model with a select. Yeah, so okay, right, crunch time. So let's get a little bit of margin on this input group. Margin bottom, it's not applying this. Margin bottom to the input group. Why not? Why not? Name input group. Oh, because I think I'm targeting the wrong one. Okay, so I want to make sure I fix this before we go any further. I need to change this to user. Username input group. How did I do this on this? I just got to check this really quick. Bear with me for just a second. I just need to figure this out. I mean, we can just apply styling to it, however, but I just want to make sure that. Let's see. Margin. Why is it? Oh, so that's applying margin from the flex gap. Okay. But it doesn't have. It's not applying that margin bottom. So we need to actually. Okay, so that's the wrong thing we're targeting. Okay, so. For the margin bottom, actually this input group, we're gonna call it form group, just so, because this name input group, username input group, if I want to do it like that, or do I want to just target these classes just so I can know which. I think I'm actually going to go about it like that. So instead of form group, what I'm going to do is just target all of these as so. Username input group. Okay. Yeah, so I think that'll work a little bit easier instead of trying to like do form, because then I can keep these naming conventions in there and see. Yeah, so the input group is kind of what we're on right now. The actual, or I'm sorry. So Joshua was asking if we ever styled the input group. So what we're looking at right now is I need to probably change this. So the input group, this div right here, this doesn't really have any classes. This doesn't have any styling applied to it. This is just a label essentially for the wrapper, so I know what it is. The only thing that's being applied to it as far as styling is the flex gap. and flexbox being applied to the whole element cluster or whatever. But so yeah, if we look at the actual input group in the DOM here, let's see. So you could say, yeah, so input group, it doesn't really it doesn't have any styles. It just has the flex gap being applied to it. Okay. 57 minutes. Let's try and get this at least built out, and then we can go from there. Okay, so we have those two done. Now we need to we have first name, last name, username, user class, and we also need to start. Or let's just copy this whole name input group again, and this one is going to be for email. So email input group, and change the label. We're just pretty much swapping out the values. Email input label, email. First, our new user dot email, and it's going to be, the input's going to be the type of email because we want it to only accept valid email inputs. It's kind of just more validation and whatnot. So we're going to have multiple layers of validation, and in this, we're even going to bring joy, what we used on the back end, to validate inputs coming in from post requests to register new users to make sure everything is within a certain schema. We're actually going to be bringing that schema into our front end to use it in conjunction with the back end, just to make sure we have consistencies across our validation schemas. So, so that'll be pretty cool. Okay, so let's get this input class, input text. That's fine because we just want the styling from it. All right, so we can, yeah, okay, we got an email set up. We can move to the next input here, and that's going to be the confirm email. So we'll do email confirm, email. Or actually, we could probably just say confirm email on this part because it's human readable, and we just want it to make more sense like that. So, and email confirm for the V model, and again, we want it to be an email type of input, and change the ID to email confirm. Excuse me. Cool. And check that that is an email. All right, neat. All right, cool. So the last set of input groups that we want to get going is the passwords. So we have first name, last name, username, user class, email, confirm email, and we also want to make them choose a password, right? Simple enough. Actually, I'm going to copy the name one again. And so we also want to add this class to the list of classes that we're pushing margin on as such. So email input group can go right after username input group. Email input group. And then we can also just add the password in since we're here right now. So password input group. So if you've never seen this before, you can chain together different classes with commas, and these styles will be applied to all those individual classes. Just a heads up. Fix the tabature on that. So let's just switch this up. Password. We're getting there. We're getting there. Password or pass confirm. Basically, we're just switching everything out to match for the passwords and stuff. So password. We want the type to be password as well, so that way we don't get text, we just get these circular things, which in all honesty isn't that secure. So if you have like it's like remember me settings and stuff on your computer, and it's a public, other people have access to that computer, I would recommend not doing the autocomplete on the passwords and stuff, because anybody that has an ounce of HTML skills can see that, and it's literally all you got to do is come here, find the input, and the password's generated in there, change the dang type to text, hit enter, and you got the clear text password right there. So I don't like that. I don't think you should be able to change the type from a password, at least from a password like that in the dev tools, because you could get an auto-generated password from a remember me user and then just change it, type equals text, and then like I said, you got a plain text password right there. So not too thrilled about that, but you know, whatever. I guess I'm not the one building the browsers. I guess it's not that big of an issue. Oh wait, this is not pass confirm, this is just pass, my bad. Okay, so we got everything. Pass, password, new user dot pass, password type, ID pass, required. Okay, looks like that one's good to go. So now let's move to the last input we have. So this one is going to be pass confirm, and then we can say the human readable, then confirm password, and this one's new user dot pass confirm. Text is going to be password, and ID is pass confirm again. All right, cool. I think that's good to go. Let's see. Looks like it. One little thing I want to do, just to kind of put a little bit of icing on the cake, so to speak, is I want to do bind to the disabled attribute. So vbind to the disabled attribute, and I'm going to set it to a conditional. So if, oh wait, no, it's new user dot pass is less than, we want it to be like, oh, we got to make sure that we're setting mins and maxes. I completely forgot. Oh my goodness. Let me just check my notes really quick. Oh wait, there is no mins and maxes for the passwords. Disabled new user dot pass is less than 6. This password should be disabled. Okay. It doesn't really look disabled because we defaulted the or reset the defaulted let's see, how do I target the disabled? So input text dot input dash dash text. Is it like this? Disabled? Oh, I think I don't need the angle brackets. I think it's just like that. Okay. Input text disabled. I want to give it just sort of a grayed out color, I guess. We could try actually, I'm not going to set a CSS variable because we're only going to have that in one place, so it's going to be right here. So background color, let's start with this one and go from there. We want to kind of get it a little like grayed out. Okay, so what will happen is if we type a password in here, it should be 6. Oh, because I got to do dot length. Okay, if new user.pass.length is less than 6, we don't want them to be able to enter a confirmed password because we want a minimum length password. This is just kind of one way to incentivize that. So you can see that it takes up to 6 characters before we're able to access that. You know, see the changing right there. So kind of neat. I like it. Just kind of like make sure so that they know that you need a longer password. I mean, what I've done in the past, instead of just doing that grayed out thing, is just hide the element completely. So maybe we could just do that instead. Like if we do the show, right? Well, what the hell? How come it isn't disappearing? What is it? Oh man, I haven't used directives in so long. I'm drawing a blank. Really? Am I serious? I can't think of this right now. What is the directive for? I can't believe I can't remember the directive right now. It's v show and v. What is the other one? Dang it! Someone tell me in the chat. I guess I could just look it up really quick. Need to invert the check. So if new user, okay, so if new user.pass.length is less than 6, we want it to vshow. Oh, okay, I see. So what Joshua was saying is we just need to switch around. So if we do that, then it disappears. But actually, what is the other one? I can't think of it. Dang it. Oh my god, this is gonna drive me nuts. What the hell? View directives. Seriously? What is this? This isn't what I want. This is like super old. Directives. No, I don't want to receive notifications. Go away. Oh, this is for like making custom directives. That's not what I want. Okay, whatever. If. Oh. If. What the What are the directives? I can't believe I'm looking this up right now. Whatever, who cares? What is that? View.set directives. Where is it? If, vhtml, vshow, vif, v also, v on once. Okay, so yeah, it is vshow. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. I was thinking that was someone else, but whatever. Good catch, good catch. Okay, so we just need to switch that because we want it to show if the password length is greater than 5, right? So if it's 6 character password. And actually we're gonna put this vif not on this input itself, but we want to put it on the actual entire div, just like that. All right, vif like that, and now if we take a look at this, we should have Oh crap, it's gonna apply the flexbox stuff. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna do vshow. So that way it's still there, it's just being hidden, and our flexbox gap stuff doesn't get screwed up. Okay, cool. So now we type it in just like that, and it shows confirm password, and everything is good to go. Okay, so we're about an hour and 12 in. Yeah, so the difference between vif and vshow is vshow just toggles the CSS display property to none and not. So if we look at this, and now that it's in there, we take a look at it. It says, oh, this base URL is because they have the password manager. It puts that little SVG in there, or PNG. Where is it? So if I delete this, let me take a look at the class. You can see that there it just toggled the style display none, and then it just removes it. So if I were doing vif completely removes it from the DOM, so it doesn't even get rendered. So in place of this whole input group, it's just going to be this little comment thing right here. That's mainly the difference. So if you don't want elements to actually be rendered and just like hidden via CSS, then you use vif. But if you just want it for whatever, I mean, that's not the only reason why you use vif. You use vif for conditionals, but when you use vif, the elements won't be rendered to the page. They versus if you're using vshow to conditionally toggle the display of something. The element is still fully there rendered to the page. It's just that the CSS is set to display none, so it's not actually displaying on the DOM. Main difference. Okay, so that is, I think, what we're going to call it on for the evening. When we come back, so hopefully we'll be able to do a stream this Saturday in the afternoon, or sometime this weekend, hopefully. That's my goal, is to get another stream in this Saturday. When we come back, we're going to do the logic side of this, as far as making the post request to our backend, and adding in some validation and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. So thank you so much for tuning into live coding with rabbitwerks JavaScript. I really appreciate the views and everybody who was hanging out in the stream tonight. Much appreciated. Make sure to like and comment. Tell me what you thought and what you're thinking about this series. Subscribe, obviously, definitely subscribe so you can continue on the series with us. We're starting to get a nice subscription base built up here, so super massive thanks to everybody that's subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate it. Gonna keep pumping out stuff as much as possible within reason, of course. So I think that's everything. So yeah, make sure to check out Hacktoberfest 2019, hosted by DigitalOcean. Make sure to check out HTML All the Things podcast. Link is in the description for both of those things if you want to take that up. You can take a look at the code on GitHub when I will be posting it to GitHub right now, actually. So git add all git commit -m registration. Oh, spelled registration. Form inputs and styles with a side of v model to go. That's right. I'll do it again. All right, git push -u for setting the upstream, and we want to make sure that it's pushing to the origin repo, and fsafs -1, and push it. And yes, cool. All right, let's take a look really quick. I need to get some food. Oh man, the screen is so bright on this monitor. Let's see, repositories, FSAFS live client. All right, so you want to take a look at the code. I have it now. I'm sending it in the chat. All right, cool. All right, again, thank you so much for tuning in to Live Coding with Rabbitwerks JavaScript. My name has been Sean, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day or evening, whatever time of the day it is. And always remember to stay awesome and keep coding. If you want to get a hold of me, Rabbitwerks Discord server is the best place to do it. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Have a good night.